When the earth was young, they were already old. Since the dawn of time, the elder have watched silently over a virgin world and all its creatures. They await the word from Morpheus, the caretaker, whether the boy be deemed ready for the sacred rite of accession into the Order of the Rose, and for the pronouncement of his sacred duty. The Odyssey begins. Okay. Now I know what you're thinking. What? Is this Kiss? It sure is. Well, that's exactly what Kiss fans were wondering when this album came into record stores on November 10th, 1981. Hey everyone, welcome to the monumental 200th episode of my vlog, and the 9th episode of my KISSTORY series. Today I'm going to be talking about the 1981 album, Music from the Elder, one of the most misguided albums that anyone's ever made, and it's frequently on the lists of, worst albums of all time. What you just heard was me reading from the poem that is included in the gatefold of the album, which I did over top of playing the instrumental fanfare that begins the album. At least it begins newer pressings of this album. There was some debate between Kiss and the record label Casablanca Records over what the official track listing of the album should be, but I'll get into that. Where we left off in episode 8, Kiss had just finished their tour for their 1980 album Unmasked, which is probably it's probably as far towards pop as Kiss ever went. And then they, of course, did a complete 180 for this one, so a lot happened in those 10 months between the end of the Unmasked tour in New Zealand and the release of this album. Around that time, Kiss's American fan base, North American fan base that is, was virtually non-existent anymore. But they were gaining some traction in South America and Australia. In releasing this bizarre album, they did a very good job of alienating all remaining Kiss fans pretty much at that time. They just made everyone confused. That was about it. So in early 1981, they had basically a vision to go back to their roots and do an album like Destroyer. Destroyer had come out in 1976, had been produced by Bob Ezrin, and had been their highest-selling studio album of all time, with hits like Beth and Detroit Rock City and Shout It Out Loud. Quintessential Kiss, essentially. And they knew that they'd strayed from their roots, and so they hired back Bob Ezrin and said, we're going to do a big, bombastic album that was like what we've done in the past. For one reason or another, it could be Kiss's insane egos at the time, or I say at the time, but pretty much always. Could be because Bob Ezrin has blamed this album partially on his cocaine habit at the time. But one thing led to another, and from the early modest rehearsals at Ace Frehley's home studio to what would eventually become this truly bizarre album, I guess things got out of hand. And the concept that they came up with after months of working with Bob Ezrin was to do an opera, essentially, a rock opera. Notice the album is called Music from the Elder. That's because this was going to be the soundtrack to a motion picture and or a play. I'm not sure what they wanted to do. Basically, they were going to use the funds from what was inevitably going to be the extremely successful Music from the Elder to fund, some sort of stage show or movie. Now, of course, as you've probably guessed, this album tanked really hard, and no such movie or play was ever made. It's important to note that Bob Ezrin, 2 years earlier, had produced Pink Floyd's groundbreaking album, The Wall. This was an enormous success, not just for Pink Floyd, but for the rock opera subgenre, sort of, and Bob was like, look, you guys are known for major theatrics. I think you'd be the perfect band for this concept. They weren't. While Kiss is a very theatrical band, they stand for one principle, and that one principle is we're going to have ourselves a rock and roll party tonight. Kiss is not about deep lyrics. Kiss is not about thought. Kiss is about loud rock and roll and blowing stuff up. That's about it. As an enormous Kiss fan, that is what it all boils down to. By the time they'd finished this album and were ready to present it to Casablanca Records, a label that Kiss had been the first stars for Casablanca Records, but they had diversified with such artists as Parliament and Donna Summer and stuff like that. And they picked up a few artists who had just left Motown as well, like the Four Tops and groups like that. And they were going downhill, and Kiss was one of their last remaining moneymakers. But when Kiss presented this album to Casablanca Records, opening with that fanfare, going into the song Just a Boy. I am just a boy, trying to be seen. And then going from there into Odyssey.
From a far-off galaxy, I hear you calling me. We are on an odyssey.
They were like, no, you cannot release this as a Kiss album. You just can't. So, Casablanca essentially shuffled the running order of the album, so it would start with The Oath, a song that was as close to hard rock as Kiss would come on this album, just so they could try to salvage some sort of audience interest. Kiss at the time was furious that they had shuffled the song order of their new masterpiece, Music from the Elder, but I think Casablanca made the right decision. Maybe they made the wrong decision by even issuing this album at all. In 1997, when Kiss remastered this album as well as the rest of their catalog on CD and cassette, and then again when they remastered it in 2014 for vinyl, they actually put the album in its original intended track listing, which I thought was a cool gesture. And so as a result, as much as I talk smack about this album, yeah, I own both of them. I own the original with the Casablanca corrected track listing and the new remaster with Kiss's original track listing concept, because I am a maniac, a completist, aka maniac of all things Kiss. But as much as this album is bizarre and I don't get around to listening to it that often, it's an interesting piece of history nonetheless, as far as I'm concerned. It's also worth noting that Kiss, which is a band that is really known for their for unique makeup designs and elaborate costuming, does not appear anywhere on this album cover. That's allegedly Paul Stanley's hand, but other than that, they do not appear. You don't get any of their makeup design on here. They don't appear on the inner sleeve. They don't appear on the center ring label. And I think that shows just how full of themselves they were at this time. I mean, the Beatles had done that with the White Album, of course, and Led Zeppelin had done that with Led Zeppelin 4. But frankly, Kiss is no Beatles, and Kiss is no Led Zeppelin, and it was an extremely ballsy move that, just like everything else about this album, really did not pan out. Kiss had planned to do an elaborate tour for this album as well, but Kiss, a band known for their elaborate stage shows, did not tour at all during the limited promotional cycle that wound up happening for this album. See, I'd like to say that this album was reviewed poorly, but it would probably be more accurate to say that this album was hardly reviewed at all. I Was Made for Lovin' You had come out in 1979, which was a huge hit for the band worldwide, but In North America, it was sort of panned for being Kiss Goes Disco, and then their next album was even more pop/disco, and so they'd alienated that fan base, and so what enormous popularity they'd had 3 years ago had dwindled to almost nothing, and this album was, yeah, at best ignored, and at worst reviled. Oh man. Kiss did exactly one live performance in support of this album, but it wasn't in front of a paid audience. It was actually in January of 1982 on the Fridays television show. This was pretty much Fridays was a knockoff / competitor for Saturday Night Live at the time. And to Kiss's credit, they played 3 of the best songs on this album, pretty much the only songs I actually enjoy at all from this record, especially a song that I really enjoy and I think would be a great Kiss song were it not on this record, a song called The Oath. Just look at that performance. I mean, look at their costumes. They were deliberately minimalistic. They even cut their hair a little bit shorter. And to me, they don't look all that comfortable with their new look. I don't know. But this album created a rift not only between Kiss and its fans, but between Kiss and their lead guitarist, Ace Frehley. Ace, allegedly, when he heard the final copy of this album, took out the album and hurled it at his wall, so the legend says. After the brief promotional tour for this album, he would have very little involvement with Kiss going forward. So even on the promotional tour for this album, when Kiss did a TV appearance in which they performed the song I, Ace didn't even show up to the TV studio. So the remaining 3 members of Kiss just lip sync to the song with Ace nowhere to be seen. And so in this footage you see Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley being the only 2 of the original 4 Kiss members on stage. And spoiler alert, you guys are going to have to get used to that in the upcoming years. That's pretty much how it would be going forward. Like I said, Ace, very limited involvement with the band going forward. In 1982, Kiss would go back into the studio, back into the drawing board, and they would put out probably the heaviest album that they had ever put out up to that time to try to sort of win back some of their old fans. But that is a topic to be discussed in the next episode of my KISSTORY series. I'm so excited in this series. I love it. I love doing this series. It's been fun. I was originally going to do it year by year. I did every year up to 1980. And now from here on out, I'm going to be doing album by album, essentially. Because it just didn't make sense for me to cover 1981 and do like half of the promo tour for The Elder and then cover the second half of The Elder promo tour in the next video. It just didn't make sense to me. So my next video in this series rather will be on the 1982 album Creatures of the Night, and the tour for it, which was pretty awesome. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching this Kiss series, which I started fairly early on this vlog. And thank you to everyone who's been watching this vlog. Like I said, this is episode number 200. So exciting. I've been doing this since May, and it's been just so much fun. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm also a professional musician myself. You can check out the description for a full list of all my upcoming concert dates, as well as links to where you can find my music, where it's sold or streamed online. You can like this video if you liked what you saw. You can subscribe to this channel if you've been enjoying my videos, and ring the notification bell if you want to be notified every single time that I upload a new video. thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you with another episode of the Kiss series in a couple of weeks whenever I get around to making a new episode of this. But I'll catch you with a new vlog again tomorrow, and I'll see you then.